Okay, everybody. This session is on Like at First Sight. What can you do to make your radio station more social and promote it a bit? Okay. So let me just start off with a little background. With the advent of the internet and more direct community engagement, and promotion of your station and brand is changing quite a bit. You'll hear that from particularly Cameron, and I know Louise and Summer will have plenty to say too. We'll discuss some of the newer promotional mechanisms and how they operate and how they are changing the game from the old way to promote to how we do it today. So what I'd like to do is have everybody introduce themselves, give themselves about 2 minutes, and give a little bit of background of where you come from personally and what your company is doing in general. And I'll start here on my left with Summer.
Hi, I'm Summer Watson. I'm from TuneIn Radio. I started a long time ago in college radio at Stanford. I had a radio show there for about 5 or 6 years, maybe 7. So long ago, I don't remember. I also worked at an indie record label while I was in school. It's called ABB Records. We put out records from folks like Dilated Peoples and Defari and Little Brother. I've been a lawyer before. Before TuneIn, I worked at a social game company, so we made games like, Zynga makes. Our company was called Playdom. So I spent a lot of time on Facebook, making games for Facebook. We sold that company to Disney, and after that I moved on here to TuneIn. And so what TuneIn does is we aggregate radio from around the world. We've got 80,000 different radio stations from here in your local market to Alaska and the Vatican. You name a place, we probably have a radio station from it. So just about everything except a couple of big exceptions, which if you're familiar with TuneIn, you might know, stations from Clear Channel and Cumulus. But it's a great product, and love to answer any questions about how we manage how we see radio stations in TuneIn manage their sites on Facebook and Twitter.
Okay, Cameron last time reminded me to introduce myself, so I will do that without much prodding. I'm Paul Camp. My background is I went to college back east, still live back east, and I come from the computer industry. I worked at Prime Computer and worked at Sun Microsystems, where our belief was the network is the computer, and we're one of the companies that helped empower and enable the internet. We were the inventors of Java, and what you're seeing a lot of today is a lot of cloud computing. And today I work for Backbone Networks, and we build internet radio broadcast and automation systems, specifically moving the automation system into the cloud itself and allowing you to broadcast from everywhere or anywhere that you have an internet connection. We believe there's a lot of niche programming out there and a lot of live events that can be broadcast, and we're there to help people do exactly that.
My name is Cameron Manwaring, for those who weren't at the panel before. I do a lot of stuff with YouTube, and that's primarily what I've done. I started out doing a lot of stuff with the actual filming and even being in the videos. And if you've seen a few of the videos online of the world's largest rope swing or human slingshot, I'm the one doing the triple front flip through the air. So kind of on the very grassroots, I started out there, and then in the past 9 months or so, I've done the managing strategy and consultation for 100 million YouTube views for different clients. And so pretty much anything that has to do with YouTube, especially on the marketing side and the consulting, to be able to help YouTube videos and pretty much any media be tweaked or changed or formatted for what's going to be able to work best on an internet platform. So.
Hi, my name is Louise Palenker. I, with a few partners, started Premier Radio Networks, which is now part of Clear Channel. And I moved on from there in 2000, started doing some stand-up comedy and writing. I wrote a young adult novel. When the iPhone 2 came out, I decided to self-publish this as an app, because I thought this is really cool. You can put product directly in people's hands without having to go through these bloated infrastructures, and I just saw things changing and I wanted to be a part of it. So once the book was in the iTunes store as an app, at the end I said, if any kids have any questions about growing up, please ask me. turns out I'm really good at answering kids' questions. And so the questions started flooding in. And a lot of times I was just operating as a switchboard where somebody would be like, "This is Joe, please tell Tiffany that she should break up with that guy." And I'm like, I was on this treadmill where I was like answering like 100 questions a day, and it was crazy. So I said to my developer, I said, "Can we turn this into a social network? Because I need to sleep and go to the bathroom." So we turned it into a social network, and now it does all kinds of things. Kids talk to each other, and we have a weekly video podcast that we use live stream to broadcast directly into the app. So kids are chatting to each other, watching the show. We've got a panel of teenagers, and we're talking about stuff that they don't see anywhere else on Nickelodeon or Disney. We're talking about the things that they want to know. When am I going to get my period? Why is my mother such a bitch? Does this kid like me? How do you flirt? How do you put in a tampon? Like, it's crazy. And they may not ask their friend, but they'll ask a stranger. And that's like one of the beauties of social networking, is that there's this safety. You're looking, used to be looking at something like this, which felt like little brothers walking by. Now you're really by yourself in a way. And if there's like an immediate, almost like radio was when we were kids, like you had your transistor radio and it was just like you and that voice. So I think people feel that immediacy with a social network that's in an app. It feels like theirs. And we would like to get more product directly to kids, bypassing the old infrastructures. We would like to get music programming. We now program 2 hours a week. I'd like to, in the tune-in section of my app, have 24-hour programming with all stuff that's appealing to kids. And so have our own television studio, have our own record label, have our own publishing company, more books for kids. And so, because to me that's what I think is the future of how people are going to be receiving content. Like a lot of people worry, oh, well, this industry is dying and that industry is dying. What's not ever dying is people want content. It's just the delivery systems are changing. And that's what we're all here to talk about.
Delivery and perhaps the promotional component, which gets to the Tumblr, Twitter components. And I want to play off a bit of what Louise just said. And how many of you have seen the movie American Graffiti?
Yeah.
Okay.
Trailers.
The younger ones haven't. The older ones, like me, have seen it. But that's basically a movie about kids on their last day of high school, graduating, driving around at night, cruising, listening to the radio, calling into the radio station, and Wolfman Jack, the DJ, is the linchpin of that community itself. And he plays the music and he keeps the kids together, and I believe that's an example of a social network from the 50s. Mm-hmm. And radio has not evolved to take advantage of the newer social media tools like Tumblr and Facebook and Twitter and others. Some stations have, but in general, the old line media companies have not. And what I'd like to learn from others on the panel here is, what are you doing either for yourselves or for your companies to help take advantage of those social tools to help build your communities? And why don't we start with Louise?
Well, my community is called Our Place. So online, we're Our Place Network. So we're on every platform that you can imagine, from Tumblr, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, to Instagram. A lot of my kids are the Instagram generation. And so I do a lot of just adding. I mean, my identity on Instagram is Our Place Network, so it's not some weird lady just adding your kid. It's or followed your kid. It's Our Place Network just followed some 12-year-old kid in Sweden. Because I do want to be worldwide, and so you kind of have to figure out like where, like I could be more heavily into Twitter and more heavily into Tumblr, but I believe that the bulk of who I'm looking for is on Instagram at the moment because it's just red hot. So I'm kind of focused on Instagram, and I should maybe be as focused on Twitter because it's easier to talk to people. I think Twitter's more conversational. I think what you have to do is sort of grasp what each social network does and then say, how can this benefit me, what its strengths are? And then kind of just really know who you're talking to and what you're trying to say. Because you don't want to be coming off as spammy. You always want to have a personality.
Right.
You don't want to be just saying, hey, watch my podcast, or hey, buy my book. You want to be funny and you want to be engaging. And with YouTube, it has to be, you could hire this guy, but if you don't have a video that people want to share or want to watch over and over again, like if that cat sneeze is really funny, you'll watch it 100 times. You know, I mean, in my mind, Mikey bit that kid's finger 1,000 times, or Charlie, or whoever it was that bit the kid's finger. I mean, it's never not funny. So it's something that if you sent it to me, I wouldn't be like, why would I want to watch this? It's something that not only do I want to watch what you sent me, I want to now send it to 10 people. So you have to be good, I guess. You can't just be social. You've got to also have something there.
So it's about building a community
Yeah.
Around what content you have.
Right.
Right.
The content has to be there because nobody likes just spamminess.
Right.
Kind of playing off of what she just said, you know, how many people here know what cattle branding is? By raise of hands. It's where they take that big piece of metal with the, you know, brand of a farm or a ranch, and they put it in the fire and then slam it on that cow, and they brand them. And I think of this because it's good for my brain of an illustration. Think of branding, and a lot of companies, you're talking about this spamminess. You kind of feel like this cow being herded into this corral, people holding you down, and then here's our brand, here's our company, here's my music, here, you know, and it's kind of just you push away from it. And what Wheezy said here is what we do a lot with YouTube stuff, it has to be consumer-driven marketing. A lot of people call this viral marketing. The difference between that is that if you think of viral, it's kind of like a virus, you know? You just think of the viewer as this passive person where you push the content to them and they view it and they take it in, but what we want is, again, that shareable aspect, that viral aspect, where the consumer is the one driving it. So for what we do, we'll take a client in a video or a song or something, everything primarily on YouTube, and then as far as the different social platforms and stuff, it really just depends. We'll put up a video, and within 3 days, we'll have already over 300 websites, 400 websites that have featured that video and posted that video. And for us, what we kind of do is we'll start out, we have contacts at places like Mashable or Devour, Gizmodo, some of these big places. And then we'll also seed it to some tastemakers at Reddit or the Daily What, you know, there's hundreds of websites. And then from there, again, if the content is good, then it'll spread from there on a user platform, Facebook or Twitter or Instagram or any of that. So a lot of what we do, it really depends. But again, having that good content is key, and that's a big thing. A lot of people want to know, how do I go viral? How do I get seen? How do I get a lot of sales in this? Well, first of all, you have to have something good. So a lot of it is about molding whatever your content is, whether it's an app or a book or a photo or a video, and making it into something that at first sight, I think is how this panel is called, you know, love at first sight type thing, where you see it and you like it. If we post a video and someone's not going, wow, or oh, or having some sort of emotional response within the first 10 seconds, it's a failure in some regards because it's not going to get shared as much. So that's really key. I guess bringing all that back together, we put it out onto some bigger platforms, and then it's up to the consumer from there what platforms they take it to. If we were the ones just posting it out on all these things, then we're the ones pushing the brand out. But if you look up on Google Images, Apple Tattoo, you'd be surprised how many images come up instantly where people have this big old Apple tattoo all over their body. And, you know, we talked about the cattle branding. In a literal sense, they've just branded themselves with the company. I mean, that's on the extreme, but that's the type of effect you need. You need something where the consumer is the one spreading that, not you.
And I think the words that you use that really best describe it are having an emotional attachment to the content, to where they want to physically brand it to their body. You know, like you see the face painters at football games and stuff like those. People have an emotional attachment to that team, and they want to be identified as
Part of who they are.
Yeah, like this is my favorite band. You will physically put a poster on your wall. Well, with the internet, with Facebook, we get to we each have our own radio station every day, and we get to broadcast whatever we like. And for some of your friends on Facebook, it's, I ate a burrito, and you're like, hide from feed. But for some of your friends are, but for some of your friends are funny, and you see their name in the feed, and you're like, oh, what did she say? Because you know it's going to be good. Well, you want to be that person. You don't want to just be telling your friends what your business is. You want to be saying something that's entertaining as you. Like, don't take yourself out of what you're doing with your life. Always be you, because I saw you ask him a question in the earlier panel. Like, you're an interesting person. I want to know who you are, not just where you work and what they're up to this week. And I think, when you're doing the YouTube stuff or the TuneIn stuff, it's like you can add a ton of personality, because it's almost like what the product is to begin with.
I was going to play off what both of you were saying, which is about good content and knowing the platforms. I think another way to say it, and you're getting at that, is just authenticity. So knowing who you are, the number one way I think to get people to gravitate to what you're posting and what you're saying is that they get a sense that it's really you, whether you're an individual, whether you're a brand. So for TuneIn, we think a lot about who TuneIn is, and so we're not just out there, hey, this is what TuneIn is doing this week, we decided we want you to know about it. It's really, what do our listeners, what do we see them tuning into, what do we think they would be interested in, whether it's a real world thing like the elections, and we know all these radio stations across the country are covering the elections, or stations in New York are covering Hurricane Sandy, and we know that's really relevant to you. Another example I have is an artist actually that I'm talking to recently, and tying this back into what platforms you choose. He was very thoughtful about the way he communicates with his fans, and he said, for me, it's really easy. He's a rapper, so he said, I think in bars of 8. So something like Facebook or a blog, it's just far too much work. Okay. Twitter, for me, just works, because it's like writing in bars of 8. Okay. And so you'll see him, he's got nearly 1 million followers, because they see that they're with him every day. He posts multiple times a day, and it feels very much like him. Or if you go and see, every once in a while he'll post to Facebook and it doesn't feel at all like him. You can tell it was his manager or somebody that did that. So thinking about what platforms tie into who you really are and how you communicate with your fans, I think is really important. And here we're talking about radio, right? And radio, one of the number one things I think about on radio outside of being live is personality. And so if your radio station, it's much more than those 4 call letters, or even if you're an internet radio station, a lot more letters. You have to get across who your personality is. A Hot 97 as opposed to a KMEL, or KZSU, where I came from, college radio. Those are all very different personalities. So what is your personality, and how do you communicate that to your listeners?
And also listening, because it is social, so you get that feedback. Like, I have an app where kids are talking to me and talking to each other, so I know what they want to know and what they want more of. Can we have a craft section? Because I have chat divided up into all these sections. Or can we have a confessions set? And then I'll have to think about it. Do I really want them confessing? I mean, what if they killed a guy? So it's it's tricky. They are, a lot of them are 14. Like, what is healthy for them? How addicted to this app should they be? Like, social responsibility. But still, the idea, you put up a YouTube video, you read the comments. I'm sure that's part of what you do for your clients. Is you see how this is doing, and then maybe for the next video they can take that into consideration. So that's one of the really cool things about social media, is that it's not just us deciding how are we going to market ourselves. It's like, okay, it's rolling back, and this did go over, this didn't go over, and what do they want? It feels like almost easier. It should be almost easier than ever to give people what they want, right?
It's a conversation, not
yeah,
a
it's a
billboard,
conversation,
right?
exactly.
And if you think about building a brand over a long period of time, the brands that really resonate have relationships and conversations with their customers. They're not just beating them over the head with what they want them to do. And so, TuneIn's very early in its stage of building a brand, but although one of our goals might be to build a brand, what we really want to do is get to know our listeners and be a part of their lives for the rest of their lives.
So do you have chat built in? Can people listen to the same radio station and be talking to each other?
So the most we have right now is we've integrated Twitter. So, and for every radio station, we try to have their own Twitter handle.
Okay.
So really, TuneIn traditionally has tried to step back and be less of a brand and let listeners connect to their radio stations. So a little bit more like a Google than than anything else. And so we've set it up so you're able to talk to the radio station and to each other through Twitter, and
Okay.
you see that whole feed in the app.
Right, you're not reinventing the wheel, you're just utilizing what already exists.
A little bit easier technologically, right?
Yeah,
We're always
yeah,
trying
yeah.
to think of the simplest path
Yes.
to the goal.
And to play off of that, what we do at Backbone is we actually, our customers are radio stations or broadcasters. And so what we're looking for is we look at that as a full ecosystem where on one hand you've got the content providers, whether that's a radio show or music or a station that runs their own things. We're looking for ways for them to broadcast on the internet, but then we also look for distribution partners like TuneIn to get their stations listed because it just amplifies their voice. And we always ask them, it's like, okay, so you've got your stream. What are you doing around your stream to help promote it, whether it's the Twitter feeds or Facebook pages? And I've met a number of college radio stations that are taking it a step further than the Twitter feed of the station. It becomes a Twitter feed of the show, and they've got a Facebook page for the show, and that you're starting to create direct relationships between the consumers of the content and the actual advertisers or sponsors if it's done right through nice YouTube videos. Back to what Summer just said a few minutes ago about being authentic and finding the mechanism that works for you. Guy back in our office, George, who Summer's met, he follows a lot of comedians, and Twitter is a perfect environment for comedians to send out 140 character tweet and that are just plain funny. And even the old guys like Don Rickles are on Twitter, and they're still funny sometimes, not always. The day after the election, Steve Martin tweeted, said, "Oh, okay, it's election day, I'm ready to go vote." Very non-political, but amusing, right? It's finding your audience in the right way to communicate with them is what I think a lot of it is about. So let's see, what else do we have for questions? More broadly, what do you see as the interesting things happening in promotion today? We talk about Twitter and Facebook, and you mentioned Instagram. Why is that taking off? Or is it just something, it's taking off, so I'm following it?
Well, for me specifically, and I don't know if you guys are reading this the way I am, but it like I mentioned earlier, it feels like we're kind of going from the computer screen to mobile, and everybody wants to be mobile because it's extremely personal. Like every member of the household could be involved in a different activity. The family doesn't have to agree on what they're watching. They don't have to agree on who gets the computer. And I mean, you guys tell me, is it, if you walked into a room and there were like a TV as big as that wall, and you had your iPhone or your iPod Touch with Wi-Fi, with your whole family home, what activity would you choose?
Mobile, the world.
So would everyone agree that that's kind of what you would choose, even if you had satellite TV and?
That's a pretty big TV.
No, because I mean, like, you guys are a good marketing sample.
And yet I love my family too, so.
Bonding time, the game's on.
Yeah.
But yeah, would you choose, if there were Wi-Fi, would you select your mobile?
This is all I have. I don't even have Wi-Fi. It's unnecessary.
So you're good, you can entertain yourself, right?
Yes.
So I guess for me, Instagram, for me having an iOS app, Instagram means if I follow them and they follow me back, they can literally click. It's a point of purchase. Like, and I have a free app, but they can literally click within the profile of Our Place Network on Instagram and download it to the exact same device that they're already using. So there's not that, you don't have to move them from the computer to plugging their device into the computer to downloading the app. It's like, that's a direct point of purchase. So I think that's kind of where things are going. And then the ads that we have in my app are like little I call them float ups because they kind of float up and they stay there for like 15 seconds. And if you click on it, it pulls up the full page, and then they can click there to download an iTunes song or download a book from Amazon. So it's not asking a lot of the consumer, like, you driving in your car like 444 8800 carpeting, and then you
Just-
got to remember the jingle because that's the phone number, and it's like much easier, I think, to get someone to. I mean, for example, like Shazam, how genius is that? I love this song, boom, because that's like an impulse buy. If you wait 5 minutes, you won't love that song anymore. You won't even remember the lyrics. You won't go home and Google it. Like, it's gone. Like, well, I think I heard a song I really loved at Starbucks, but I don't know. And then you no longer need it. It's an impulse buy. So I think that's one thing that, in our business that we need to capitalize on, is that when the window opens of the mind going, yeah, I would spend 99 cents on that, you have to get their 99 cents.
So I see Louise's transition from stand-up comedy to sit-down comedy. Cameron, what?
Tell me the question once again, just to kind of.
More broadly, what are you seeing and that's interesting that's happening today? For example, she mentioned Instagram and you're doing YouTube, but are there trends you're following saying, gee, Tumblr is really interesting, or
Yeah,
Instagram?
sure. I want you all to think about this for a second, because it's really a big part of. It's just us personally too. I do YouTube. I love YouTube videos, and for work I watch YouTube videos. It's really fun. But
Pretty cool
when
job.
when I log on to the internet, or else I have my phone or something, very first things. Okay, everyone, like Facebook, right?
Yeah.
Then Gmail or Hotmail if you're still there. I'm transition, Anyways, Facebook, Gmail, and then I go to Pinterest. I love Pinterest. Anyways, and then Imager. Me and my wife sit down and we look at Imager things. We love those. And then from there, I have a few different websites that I go to for like kind of current events per se, news, cool videos, things that came out. We kind of have this stream, and I think a lot of it, there's so many platforms growing every single day, and a lot of stuff that's been changing is just people's attention span. People want to be entertained right away. And in fact, like last year, the statistic for someone clicking on a YouTube video, and if it was taking too long to load, after 5 or 6 seconds, they'd click away and go to a different video.
Wow.
Now this year, the average is 2 to 3 seconds. So you can see how people's attention span is just going away. So really, coming back again to this, what the panel's about, at first sight, you have to have something that stands above the rest. And how many here, by raise of hands, have heard of Seth Godin and the purple cow theory? Oh, wow. There we go. That's good. If you're here in Los Angeles, I don't know, but let's say you're driving on down the road and you see a field of cows, okay? And it's just cows. You drive past every day, these cows. And then one day you're driving down the same road, same field of cows, and one of them is bright purple. First thing you're going to do is you're going to pull off to the side of the road, and you're going to take a picture of this cow, see if it's real, like what's going on. When you get home, first thing you do, you tell your brother, your sister, your wife, your cousin, hey, I saw this purple cow. You go to work, you tell them about this cow. Maybe it's even so different and stands out so much that you say, hey, let's go jump in the car, I'll show it to you. It's crazy, this cow's purple. And with anything, nowadays we're so inundated with social media platforms. There's thousands of them. And there's some that don't even make it off the ground because it's just not enough. But there's so many where even these really good platforms, you don't have enough time to visit every single one of them each day. And so what is it about your content and what is it about this platform that's going to stand out? What is the purple cow to the whole field of all the rest of the cows? And that's really important. I think anything here, I don't know, and it'd probably be good to ask maybe just as a quick, what are you doing, what are you doing, what are you doing?
Sure.
But for each person here, whatever you're doing, finding your content, making it stand out, making it something that's valuable, even if that value is in entertainment, if the value is in it's helpful, it's informational, it's funny, it's sad, it connects you to a broader scope of people. There's so many reasons, but value in your content and standing out, that's very, very important for that. So,
I think Louise made a great point earlier, thinking about where her actual readers are. So thinking about where your audience is. For TuneIn, we have a really mass audience because it's tapping into radio, and 98% of people listen to radio every week. So we try to be everywhere. We spend some time on Facebook, Google+, Twitter, wherever we can think that people are. She's spending her time on Pinterest. And then me personally, I just try to stay on top of where I see people are heading. I used to make my living on Facebook, and I spent an inordinate amount of time on Facebook. I find myself on Facebook a lot less these days. And so I've got these nieces, 3 nieces, who are all high school to junior high school age. So I try to spend time with them every week, at least once a weekend.
Now
and
on our place, you'll spend time together with them on our place. Now that you know about it.
Now that I know about it. If they don't
It's a
already
purple
know.
cow.
If they don't already know, I'll tell them.
Okay.
But I would say, if not more often, at least once a month, I am seeing them somewhere new.
Oh, really?
So to try and keep up with where I see people are going, they have
interesting.
really, really short attention spans. Like the place they were at last month, I don't even remember the name of it. And I see them going to, group messaging, group text messaging, all sorts of things. Probably the one stable I'm seeing is, of course, Instagram. I'm sorry, I said Pinterest, but you
Yeah.
said Instagram. And that's becoming the new stable for them. So just trying to keep in touch with where your own community is, but also not staying out of touch with what the next trend is. Where is it
Yeah.
going from Friendster to MySpace to Facebook?
Like for us,
to
it's
Instagram?
helpful to ask you guys, where you're at. And as soon as you guys are in college, you should ask the high school kids, because it's really changing rapidly.
Right.
And it's helpful to know, because I don't know how much shorter our attention spans can get, but it just feels like sometimes you're in a conversation and you're just going, I really want to look at my phone. It's more interesting than you. I mean,
just
and
do it
that's
anyways.
sad. And I always tell the kids in the app, I say, you need to first of all be present for the people who are present. Like, do not choose this over someone who's in the room with you. But we have become addicts.
Right.
So
We have national ADD.
it needs to enrich our lives, not replace our lives.
Right. So why don't we ask the audience if they had questions of the panel?
Like one of the things we were talking about was like creating an identity and just like a little background information about us as our station. We're a college station, but we're transferring from a rock station to a variety station because that's what our DJs want to do. But we always seem to get these phone calls from our listeners from our local community that have been listening since our history, and they want us to go back to our rock station. But how do we make our DJs happy by playing the music that they want to play, but yet make our listeners happy that like our station the way it was?
Well, you know when they make a change in Facebook,
It's the worst thing ever.
people think that you just stabbed them in the head. Okay, so give it 6 months, because you're getting a reaction from people that it's funny how we talk about our short attention spans, and yet people don't like change. And there could be 100 times as many listeners with a more mainstream format that don't know you exist yet, haven't tuned into you yet, and you're just hearing from a couple of crank mouths, who want to hear some Zeppelin. And I would say, definitely let your brand, let people get branded with, this is who we are now. Because if you move every time someone says move, you're not using your own convictions. And yeah, I think people have to play the music they like, and you guys have to all agree to play the music you like, and you're going to get some haters. But ride it out is what I would say. And if in 6 months it's still more hate than love, then you rethink it. But you kind of have to dig in and establish first.
It's finding your audience.
There's always some undercurrent of who you are, and knowing who you are shouldn't make you afraid of change and trying something new. Just a terrible example, my last company, we were, like you're mentioning with Facebook, a game company, so a software company. We're doing things online. We would make changes to the game all the time. And we would have these really, really loyal game players who were not happy with just about any change we made. They'd get on the message boards, they'd email us, they'd call us, they'd complain. And at the end of the day, the one thing that we would always communicate to them that was pretty steady about us is that we weren't afraid to try new things and test. And so we would always say, really be patient with us. We like to test. We like to try new things. And if we turned out that we're wrong, and the way we would determine it was you might not be able to do as much offline, is that we were digital. So there could always be a really vocal minority, but the numbers wouldn't lie. So if we saw our entire audience dropping off a cliff, then we knew something was wrong. But if we saw them staying or in fact becoming more engaged or introducing new people to the game, then it was that really vocal minority that just hates change. My husband hates change. He moved down here with me from the Bay Area to LA because I wanted to come back. And then now with my last startup, I wanted to go back to the Bay Area to get back in the startup mode, and now he doesn't want to come back.
Oh.
Some people just hate change, and you've got to power through it.
Yeah.
I think with one thing too, though, it's true, like the Facebook thing, it's really true. They'll make a change, there's some buzz about it, and then people move on. I think Facebook in some degrees, though, is an exception. I mean, people don't do without it. It doesn't matter what changes they make to it. I think even if on the dramatic side of it, they started charging like $100 a year for it, a lot of people would still do it just because it's become so part. A lot of people wouldn't, but in the end, they've just created that. So I think with some things, though, it's really important with user feedback when you have something where people are able to comment, people are able to give feedback. There's some exceptions, like this TuneIn, such a broad range. However, even within the vast majority of what they're doing, it's still a niche market. And I think that's one thing that nowadays you're still going to have to do and fight is you're going to have to still have something that stands out. You're talking about going from a rock station to an everything station. That can be all right. However, sometimes, and depending, you can be a lot more powerful as a niche market. For YouTube channels, at least, there's not really any YouTube channels that do a lot of variety beyond what their channel is. You guys heard of Ray William Johnson? He's like one of the number one or two in the world for YouTube channels, and probably as close to a radio station as some get, where he's like a Tosh.0 but online. So people go and they submit videos and this and that, and then he just talks about them. He talks about everything all over the place, but his content is consistent.
His personality.
And so maybe taking something where whatever your format was with the rock stuff, and then you're going to open up into some more alternative and this, but keeping at least the format, keeping that consistent. I think that's really important. Change in content can be okay sometimes, but especially the format is what really people need. They need stability.
So by format, you mean the personality of the station? Like,
Yeah.
no matter who's on the air, like, maybe give people some constants, like that at 2:00, this music is played, and then at 6:00 this personality.
We
And
do
that,
have that, like we do in the rotation that for certain hours of the day, especially like later at night on weeknights, we try to, after we're off air, off radios, we do like a lot of rock, and as we were told, people like listening to at night to keep them up for homework is like that rock.
Yeah.
And then like in the morning, if during commuters, we try to tune it more towards the adults, so the commuters.
they've got kids in the car, and it's the moms and stuff.
I wonder if it's even just the degree of transition, if it's really going from rock to top 40 main, or if it's from rock to like indie rock and indie hip hop and jazz, and I'm not sure how drastic your change
Yeah,
is.
that's what, that's a good point, is like, I know you guys are a college station, but don't have the music change so much that someone who's just set it as one of their settings will come back in the car, 5 hours later, and it's like something completely different, and she's like, oh, I don't think I like the station as much as I thought I did. I mean, if it's gonna reflect the personalities of the jocks, have it be at least somewhat similar, so that it's not shocking someone who thought they were listening to Michael Bublé and now they're listening to some screaming rap guy. You know what I mean. I guess it shouldn't be a shock to the system, or it should be all music that you guys think is good.
And are you trying to be all of Pandora, or are you trying to be one Pandora channel? And it seems sometimes like you're, withholding yourself from your full potential of all this stuff. But sometimes when you're really, really, really successful at the channel, then people trust you enough to broaden out. And so, yeah, I don't know how many people are calling, how many people are complaining. Is it like a big deal, or is it a few random people
It's
that
a
are?
few people that are they've been listening for a while. They're
Yeah.
former alumni, stuff
Yeah,
like
it's
that.
the alumni is
I
coming
mean,
out
part
this
of
year.
part of
The ones that
we
make
have
defund your
students-
station.
We have students who say they love listening to the station, but they're not the ones that call in and say, hey, thanks, you guys are doing a great job.
Listen to your students. It's a college radio station.
Yeah. And you know what else? Like,
That's not who we get our money
when
from.
it, depending
Right.
on how many people it is,
That's the problem.
don't worry about it too much, because I've shared this with a bunch of other people, especially YouTube channels. They'll put up a video and there will be a lot of comments and they'll be like, this is the stupidest thing we've ever seen. You're so ugly. You're so dumb. You know, go kill yourself. Like Rebecca
horrible.
Black's Friday, you know,
Yeah.
all the death threats and everything.
It's horrible what they do.
But then you go and watch that YouTube video and they're ripping paper and the baby's laughing. You know, and there's people on there and they're like, F you, baby. And it's like, people are just hateful people, you know. There's some people that are just going to comment hateful things at a baby. So I think when you think about it, it depends on the quantity of the people that are doing
They
it.
didn't
Just
read those
knowing
comments
that,
to the
It's like the
baby
same
today.
I hope
demographic
not.
that's consistently saying that they don't like it.
yeah,
She
okay.
she made an interesting point. She said it's the alumni that are complaining, and they're the ones that fund the radio station.
Well,
So
We'll listen to them.
Yeah. Go find somebody else to help fund the station, then you're cool.
Well, for us, that is another part of the problem. You know, we're funded by our student government.
That's our
Yep.
big funding.
But our ideal goal is to be completely alleviated from that. We want to be funded by underwriting. We're not a commercial radio station, but
Right.
a lot of the problem is getting that underwriting and how to get the businesses interested in underwriting with us. How do we sell ourselves as
Right.
the best thing out there?
Right, and a lot of stations are out there trying to do that, and some are successful and others aren't. You know, do you have a sales department? Do you have people that go out and, you do have a sales department,
Yeah.
and they're here. And what are you doing to help put together that kind of package that would appeal to the underwriters, you know? Can you put together something that says, oh, we get 100,000 listener hours a month, and we produce 3 YouTube videos that generate 1 million views a month, and you will get out to this kind of an audience for you. And in your typical radio environment, they're running, commercial radio, they're running about 8 minutes of advertising an hour. If you want to do underwriting, you want to chop that down quite a bit. You want to sound more like an NPR station and do maybe 2 minutes an hour, 15 seconds a spot. And it's still CPM driven, but you can help monetize what you're doing through putting out special coupons on Twitter or on Facebook for your advertisers or underwriters. And there are many fewer rules on the internet than there are for terrestrial broadcasting, but most stations that we talk to are trying to follow more the NPR rules if they're looking at their radio station as a training ground for terrestrial broadcasting. So they're trying to keep it the same, even though the rules don't apply in the same manner as they have traditionally, particularly on the internet. At least that's what we're seeing with some of our stations.
can I ask you guys what you feel like the future of terrestrial is? I mean, these guys they're learning their chops. No matter what they go on to do, they'll be broadcasters, they'll be great personalities, but what they're attempting to do right now, is it almost like, what's the point? Because all these stations are going to be feeding into, a TuneIn or.
No, I don't think so at all.
What's happening?
If anyone has any other social media questions, raise your hand and interrupt us. But on this bigger question, I don't think so at all. I think TuneIn is here to actually enable radio. We really, really believe in what's special about radio. There's a ton of music services out there, but what's really cool about radio is live. It's personal. It's the real
Local,
world.
yeah.
It's also not just music. It's news. It's talk, sports, local and global. So what we're really trying to do in the last year, we've formed a lot of really close relationships with broadcasters across the board, both the bigger ones. We're doing a bunch of work with college radio stations and spent a lot of time at CMJ and internet-only stations, and then also just non-radio, new audio content, people who can create new radio, whether it's like a Wall Street Journal or Motley Fool that can put something together, TED Talks, and create their own radio station. And what we're really trying to do is help get a bigger audience for them, and an audience that reaches beyond their local. So TuneIn is lucky. We've got about 40 million monthly active listeners, and when you're, just a radio station with a certain radius in a certain city, you're just limited. And so TuneIn we're trying to open that up so the whole world can tune into, number one. And number two, there's a bunch of really interesting opportunities to monetize digitally that expand past what you can do terrestrially. And so we've got a lot of broadcasters in closer to figure those out together as well.
Well, do you think that eventually, like a station like theirs will have more listeners digitally than they would?
I think
well,
stations like theirs actually become more important over time because they're
Exactly.
really diversifying and providing that niche content that you can't get in a local market. So right before this, in fact, Paul was mentioning a polka station that he worked with. That you could not have a polka station in the LA market.
Yeah.
You have
we
a polka show
stations.
on Sunday afternoons from 4 to 6, but you couldn't have a polka station.
Yeah, TuneIn's got like 24/7 streams of the English Premier League and TED Talks. These are things that could not be sustained in a terrestrial market. So it's actually
And,
going to grow.
and an
Cool.
opportunity we worked with TuneIn this year was Major League Lacrosse. Okay, Major League Lacrosse is trying to generate more attention for themselves, right? Well, how are they going to do that? They're going to go to ESPN and they're going to try to get more play on the major talk, sports talk radio station in the local markets, or they can take matters into their own hands and start to broadcast themselves and start to find ways to get the word out themselves. So we're seeing a lot more niche programming like polka music or Major League Lacrosse or other. I was contacted this week. Hey, you might want to check out Ultimate Frisbee to help them broadcast. It's like, okay.
And it gets back to the personality thing too, right?
Yes.
So one thing we did, Hot 97 is this huge commercial broadcaster in New York, and they're one of the big. They do Summer Jam every summer, and so we worked with them and set up this extra stream outside. So their main stream, they just simulcast their FM stream, the broadcast. So we set up an extra special stream of just Summer Jam radio. And so leading up to Summer Jam, it was all these B-sides and old songs that there's no reason that they would play it on their FM station. So old Nas songs from his first album, that just wouldn't happen on their FM station. And then when the event came, switched to the live broadcast of Summer Jam. And so if you weren't in New York and you couldn't go to the show, all of a sudden you can listen to Summer Jam from around the world.
So you
So
can get
even
real-
as a terrestrial station, you can use these new technologies to expand how you communicate with your audience.
And
That's really cool.
And on that example specifically, terrestrially, there's certain music they can't broadcast, because it's all hip hop music. Yet on the internet, they're good. So they get the full versions of certain. Well,
So we could actually find out what Pink is singing about her day?
Certainly, and it's interesting because the cross promotion happens because the radio station is promoting the internet stream, and you can see the numbers go up, and vice versa because they,
cross-promotion.
MS Communications is trying to cross promote and build the brand up generically, and they sold out the Meadowlands.
Yeah.
And, and they
So
had.
it didn't cannibalize audience or tickets or anything.
Exactly,
Wow.
exactly. So there's a lot of interesting things like that that are happening, and you can even see it in terrestrial radio, with what Clear Channel has done with, I think the name of the company is Big Music. Taylor Swift just released an album, and it's probably the biggest album release since 2002. And, she's got a special deal with Clear Channel for both iHeartRadio and for terrestrial broadcast. And that promotion, the value of radio traditionally has been the ability to promote what's going on, and it still exists.
I just saw at the door we had 5 minutes or
Okay.
maybe some last questions or something. Anything you guys came here wanting to find out about or that would be helpful for you guys?
It might be a stupid question, but how would YouTube help out radio stations?
Sure. Not at all. There's a lot of people where, if you really wanted to, YouTube also is doing some stuff with live feeds, where pretty much same thing as a radio station in some regards, where people could actually set up a station on YouTube. However, probably one of the best things is just getting I guess, exposure for a radio station, whether it's an artist or an interview or something like that. You guys can set up a channel that's dedicated to interviewing different artists locally or hopefully bigger ones, and then being able to showcase those so people see it. And you know, there's lots of different ways. Is there one specifically that you guys have tried, or is there one that?
We haven't really tried that area at all yet, so.
What a local Boston internet radio station has done is called Unregular Radio. They bring bands into their studio, and the bands play live. You know, so it's going out over their stream, but then they produce a YouTube video of it and put it up.
Some of those are very popular. Like,
right.
I know some places where the band, if you look up one of their videos, they'll have like 5 million views, and it was a video they recorded inside a radio station playing a song. And I've done a lot of stuff with bands before where I did some music stuff, and a lot of them as well, that whether it's a college radio station or someone else, they go in, it's broadcast live, but then people that just heard it, you tell them, hey, what you just barely heard has been recorded and it'll be on YouTube at the end of the day. So go to YouTube to check it out and listen. Because people, when they think of something, YouTube is the Google of not only video now, but a lot of music. Even if you have a song that you're thinking of or that you want to hear, you go to YouTube to find it or listen to it. And you go to YouTube to find the lyrics and sing along with Taylor Swift, like they said, you know.
Yeah, because you can listen to the whole song for free on iTunes.
And,
You listen
and
to
it's
like
visual,
30,
right? It's visual, it's everything. So it is a really important part. There's different things you can play around with. That's one that's been successful, especially depending on the caliber of the artist that you have in.
Any other questions? They gave us the signal that we're about done.
Last one.
That's a stretch, not a question. Okay, good. Okay, thanks everyone for coming. Thank you to the panel. Yeah, well, yeah. I won't tell them. I won't. Notice I brought up Taylor Swift. She's, with those guys too. Yeah, that's true.